What happened?
It's recording.
Oh, did you get a notice that
Because when the AI said it was recording, I already accepted. So I think that's just that just accepts it for everything, I think.
Okay, well, yeah. Now the one thing I have not learned how to do is edit videos, so please be patient with me.
Don't worry, take your time.
So this is Valerie Medina from Drawing on Spirit, and I'm the host of the program, and I'd like to introduce Lorena Espiga, my interviewee, who I'm interviewing today. And so I'll just give a brief introduction about Lorena. Lorena is a world-renowned AKASHIC records reader and healer, teacher, and alchemist. She does flower essence. She's a psychic medium, a rune reader, and soon-to-be astrologer. She was born in Uruguay and grew up between New York and South America. She currently lives in the Cayman Islands, where she now lives close to her sister and spiritual business partner, Lucia Espiga. Lorena shares her love for the Akashic records and spiritual healing and spirituality with us through the Soul Tribe podcast, which you can find on any podcast medium. And that's actually how I found you. And she also has classes that are run through the Soul Tribe Academy, which is what I also took. I took my first Akashic Records reading, ability to read my own Akashic Records. And then I took level 2, which is the ability to read other people's Akashic Records. So, and through her life-changing readings, I can say that because of her readings, they have changed my life and given me clarity. So please welcome to the show, Lorena Espiga. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me here. I'm so excited. And for that introduction, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I don't think I could have written that. I'm just like, what? Great. And yes, I was thinking about how we met each other. Was it through because you reached out because of the podcast and for a reading?
I probably reached out a few times on the podcast because, you know, everything resonates with me on that podcast. It's amazing. And I was drawn more to you for your earthy nature, whereas your sister is thinking about things that are a little bit foreign to me. So you are very relational for me. You're very earthbound and talk about a lot about relationships, our relationship with ourselves. So I was drawn to you for a reading, but I had been following Soul Tribe since 2017, maybe 2017 or 2018. I know that it was before my mom passed. So I was starting to do my research and what do you call it when you're my exploration into spirituality when my mom got sick in 2016. So then I started looking for ways to inform all that information that I was feeling and getting and resonating with. And your podcast was one of the ones that I was drawn to over and over again. And then I joined on Patreon for $6 a month, which is such a bargain. You guys give so much content and information. I just love it. I love being part of that community too. You know, you also have a what is it? It's a Telegram where
it's like a chat group. Yeah, where everybody can just chat and connect.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what we found with Patreon was like we're all there, but not everybody's on the platform all the time, and it's hard for people to have conversations.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something I'm missing about the platform, but we're like, let's just get a chat group, and it's grown, and you know, the idea is that people can support each other. It's like it has a life of its own. People can chat, connect. That people have made friends. They've met in person.
Yes.
Amazing.
And I know that one of the other members, Aaron Case, who is a medium as well, and he does gifts and guides readings. I've connected with him, and he interviewed me for his show on Instagram. And then I interviewed him this last week, but I haven't put the video on my YouTube channel. So yeah, we're just growing and sharing, and
It's
I mean,
amazing.
yeah,
That's all I ever wanted,
yeah,
like a supportive, open, loving group. That's
yeah.
what I felt I didn't have, and that's why we created the podcast, really, so people could feel that support and
I think
they
as you,
weren't alone. Yeah,
yeah, and as you grow and change and take on new information, you learn new things about you come to a new understanding about your life and your struggles. And when you come to those understandings, you want to share with someone who gets it. And that's the wonderful thing about it, is not everyone is in the same place, and that's okay. But you want to be able to share this fantastic news. It's like when you're healed, you want to tell everybody, when you
yeah.
make new discoveries about yourself, you want to share those things. So,
Yeah, and I think there's something to sharing your journey with others because it could inspire somebody to feel, like I say, less alone. But
yeah,
more than that, it can inspire them to find a healing modality to it's like to feel like they don't have to give up, right? Because I think a lot of times, I think especially now, I felt this energy all of August for so many, myself included. Like it's been hard. It's been some tough energies this month.
yeah,
And I feel that through all the readings that, people that come to me for readings, people in my life, personal stories, you're just like, wow. And this is where the communities and groups and this kind of thing, we're sharing our stories could become something really inspiring for somebody else.
yeah.
You have to get yourself out there though and share and be vulnerable. I think that's really important
You
for
know,
a lot of people.
yeah, we actually, I had quite a busy, it was quite a chaotic month, I would say. There
Agreed.
was a lot going on, and I know that I personally felt exhausted, especially this week. And then a big event happened in my courtroom, where an elderly defendant passed away in our courtroom.
Gosh.
And it was pretty incredible. It was, I don't, if I hadn't have done this work, I would have been afraid. And there were other coworkers with me who experienced the fear of that. But I really saw it as an honor that he passed away in our courtroom, because it was a safe place for him to go. And the person who was his caretaker, his ex-wife, was there as well. And she wasn't alone too during that experience. I mean, he could have passed away on the road, in the street, walking. I mean, it could have been really hard. And I just feel like, our bailiffs were there. They performed CPR. They made a valiant effort to keep him here. But, he was ready to go. And I really look at it as, wow, he chose the safety of our courtroom, of our courthouse, to pass away. And I think that is a special, I feel honored to have experienced it. And 10 years ago, oh, it would have bothered me, right? I mean, we still have to do the earthly things of cleaning the courtroom and performing that extra step of, after a person dies, they have to go, hazmat has to go in and clean it and all that. And I understand that part of it, but no, I just felt different about it than I would have 10 years ago.
100. I think when we embark on this journey, our perception, the way we feel about life changes a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. And the way we feel about death, we now understand that we're infinite and forever. And that takes away the scariness of going, understanding that we're all connected all the time. That's a
Yeah.
wonderful thing, right?
Yeah. I also want to validate that it doesn't make it any easier sometimes for some of us, but
No.
we're able to see past the physical side of it, that we can
Mhm.
see that there's something bigger. And I think that gives us a peace of mind, but also, you know, like you said, it could take away some of the fear. Like I always say to people, like, I'm not so fearful of myself dying. It's more the ones that I love around me,
Yes.
because that to me feels like it's all the emotional stuff like that starts to come up. But obviously there's always a reason for everything, and our soul does there's, you know, when we incarnate, we have a specific amount of time here.
Mm-hmm. And we have options. Also, we have free will, we have options, we have exit points. So, and this particular man was 95, and he was bipolar. So he was suffering with, you know, a lifetime of experiencing disconnection. So, yeah, and disconnection with his ex-spouse who was taking care of him. And so I just kind of feel that, you know, I definitely had, but it didn't mean that it didn't affect me in a physical way, because I was exhausted from the experience. It was heavy, you know, to
Of course
experience it with other people too, you know.
yeah, yeah.
So, well, what I want to talk about today is Akashic Records.
I love that.
So how long have you been an Akashic Records healer, and how did you discover this modality and decide to help people with it?
I can't remember the exact year, but I did start getting readings probably in my late 20s, where I started getting readings from other readers. It was something that my mom, I remember mom saying Akashic Records, and I'm like, what is that? That sounds so mystical, right?
Mm-hmm, yes.
And I was seeing somebody at the time who I don't know if my mom mentioned it or I mentioned it to him. He's like, I know somebody. Like, here's her number. So I think my mom went first, or my sister went first, and then my mom. I don't remember what order that was, and I went last. Mom was like, everybody go first, and then I'll go. And that reading changed my life. Like it gave me such a sense of peace. It allowed me to feel the connection. Mind you, like I had been going through years previous, like let's say when I was 18, 19 into my early 20s, with severe depression and panic attacks. And there was a lot going on emotionally in my world. And I think at the point that I found the records, it was just not that I was going through the depression or the panic attacks still existed, but they weren't so prevalent. But the thing was, I felt really disconnected to myself, and I was going through, and I still am going through this kind of self-love journey. And I think that really showed me what feeling connected to something really was like. It was something that would last for months after a reading. And I was like, oh my gosh, every 6 months, without even like thinking about it, I'm like, I need another reading. And it wasn't even about the questions I was asking, because some of these questions were great. They were giving me some insight. It was more what I felt when I was in the reading that I was like craving and needing. And I think it was like 2 or 3 readings in, probably like a year and a half after I was getting these readings with this reader in Uruguay. I remember she channeling through my higher self and my soul said, you know, this is something you can learn. You know, they're encouraging, your spiritual team's encouraging you to learn this. I was like, me? Like, are you sure? Like, is that message right? And I think shortly after I signed up for her kind of like it was more of a group. It was a small group in her house where I would learn level 1, which is reading my own records. And it was beautiful. When I was in the group, the people that we met, we got messages from the group, but I felt like it was so hard to connect. And I kept trying to open my records, and I wouldn't channel. Like, I'll be honest, I wasn't channeling for a while. I would just open them at work. I would open them when I was doing this, or I would open them when I was going to have a conversation, or I'd open them to be more creative or to study. And then fast forward years later, which was probably, oh my gosh, I'm thinking like the year, it was probably like before we started the podcast. It was probably like a year before the podcast that I got, it was like, I said those moments of like awakening in your life where you're like, what am I doing?
Yes.
I need to really love myself right now, because I am not feeling good. I'm not feeling good at all. So I started going to therapy. She was more like a coach slash therapist. She really helped me start to feel more connected to myself, work through. I was journaling every day, waking up early. I was
Mm,
taking care of myself. I was listening to all these spiritual podcasts. And it was something I was so disconnected to for so many years because I'm very earthy. I have a lot of Taurus. Everything's very 3D sometimes for me, but I was also going into connecting more to this ascendant of mine of Scorpio of emotions. And I'm a very emotional person. I feel a lot. But I was also channeling all that emotion and helping others in a way that wasn't really good for me. And I got this message to redo level 1 and to do level 2. I was like, I need to help people. I feel like I need to do that right now. I feel ready. And it was all quick. I redid level 1, went straight into level 2, and I started offering readings for people. Like, it was so scary. I was like, what am I doing? My sister, obviously, Lucia, had been doing it for years and years and years. And even seeing her do it, which I thought was amazing, I never felt that pull in all those years to ever become a reader to help people. It was so strange that through my healing, my self-love, through realizing, I don't know, it was like that I could allow myself to go down this path that felt so frustrating for so many years, like so many years of like, this isn't for me. I can't do this. Like, I didn't believe in myself,
yeah, trust yourself.
I couldn't trust myself at all for anything. um,
I
and
relate.
then, yeah, for like a lot of things. And then going down this path and then getting this download. It was, I considered a download because I was just sitting. I was like, I need to start a podcast with my sister. And we did that. And then here I am, it's just like the whole path opened up. I'm now studying family constellations. I studied astrology, flower essence therapy. There's so much, right? There's so much. And I think as healers, we evolve. But it started with my own self-love journey, with feeling like I needed to be connected to something because I felt at moments empty. I felt lost. It felt difficult.
Yeah, I love the way your podcast, it your conversations with your sister are so organic, and you each bring something to the conversation. And she'll struggle for a word, and you pick and you go, I know that one. It's
We read each other's minds.
exactly. It's really a wonderful team that that you have with her, and I just love that you show up for each other. I don't, I see a little bit of how personally, now that you guys are living together, it's kind of funny now that you're in the same room. There's sometimes a little bit of, oh, no, 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 to back and forth to each other, where I
It's
never see.
different.
Yes, it is. The energy is a little bit different when you guys are in the same room. It's really funny. You see the sisterhood in it, you know,
Yeah.
the relationship part of it is really cool. It's really neat to see.
Yeah.
So as a follower, I actually love the way that you show up with her in those sessions.
Yeah, I think we just try to make it before we would plan it out, and it's like,
Yeah.
let's just talk. We'll have an idea and then we'll just flow with it. I think that makes it so much more enjoyable for us and for people to listen to.
Hmm.
And you never know what's going to come out.
Yeah. Yes. So what kind of information is available within a person's Akashic records?
So much. The Akashic records are about information. Like, you've studied it, you've had readings, you've been on both sides of it, right?
Yeah.
It is all information, and the information creates the healing. It creates the awareness, brings things to your consciousness. It helps you understand things. So the information that we get is from, some people refer to the Akashic records as the book of life. If you look at it that way, it's kind of like your soul's book of every life, everything that's happened to your soul, everything that your soul's experienced, everything that it's desired, everything that has gone on in the past, present, and potentially the future. So there's obviously the questions that we ask bring down the information. I always say to people in a reading, the questions are the most important part, because that is the free will to bring that information down through the book. And obviously your soul and your spiritual team are there to help extract it and communicate it. But we can get information about past lives. We can get information. I always say, I tell people to focus on the present more than anything to understand what's going on today, because that helps clear out things from the past, and past lives can come up. But we can also understand things about the future as well, like what's most aligned for us. But we can understand past lives, and that can give us answers on why we're struggling with certain relationships or things in the present. We can understand soul contracts. We can understand our contract of why we're here and incarnated. We can understand our purpose and our mission. We can understand our struggles. We can understand our repetitive patterns, our relationships at a way deeper level that I think a lot of people don't really get, because obviously not everybody knows what the Akashic records are, right? But I always say it's a great space and a great kind of reading to ask about yourself and relationships. And obviously very cosmic things too. Some people go in and ask about the universe and their past lives. But like Lucy and I always say, and this is what all my teachers have said to me, they don't gossip. It's not about gossip. It's information. It's like you opening an encyclopedia and saying, I want to learn about this bug here, or I want to learn about how coffee's made. You open it up and you ask a specific question. And the more specific, the more accurate you ask it, the more accurate and more specific the answer will be. And past lives don't always come up in a reading either. You know, sometimes we're not ready to hear it, or sometimes it doesn't really pertain to what we're going through at that moment in our life. But you can come in a year and ask a question, and all of a sudden a past life comes up. That happens too. I think the readings, not so for me, I can only speak for myself, because obviously I think every reader is very different. But for me, I'm very much about relationships. And this is why I'm studying family constellations now. I go into a lot of the patterns and understanding ourselves through relationships. A lot of ancestral things can come up too. I see a lot of the family lineage. I can connect to energies. So, you know, you mentioned the psychic mediumship stuff. I do that through my readings. I offer that separately. But these readings can really be anything. You know, you create the reading through your questions and your energy and how open you are, and the information just starts to flow. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to need to sit with that for a bit, because it's a lot sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, how does the information, say, for instance, you do these over Zoom, right?
Yes.
And so you have the person, just like I'm sitting here today with you, and you see the person, and you say a verse in order to open the person's records. And in your case, you say it in Spanish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the language you're more comfortable with. And then me, as a person who's come to you, I've written down all my questions, right?
Yes.
Probably a couple of days or the night before or whatever, as I concentrate. So by writing these questions down, I've set an intention, right? So then this information is there. So I'm asking you a question. How does it come into your knowing? What does the information sound, look like? What do you get visions? Do you hear an auditory voice in your head? How do you?
There's three main things for me. My body, so I will feel things. I can physically feel, for example, I'll do a reading and I get what I call the initial message. When I open the records, they're already pushing something. And usually it changes every now and then, depending on the person. But generally I'll get some kind of feeling in my body, and I'll speak it and say, okay, I'm feeling this. And all of a sudden it's the words start coming in. So it's in my own voice. And I explain that to people when they do level 1.
Yeah.
They're expecting some external voice to come. No, it's your own. They use your brain, your thoughts, to bring in that information. You don't understand why you're thinking or that thing's coming through, but you just have to speak it or write it down, right?
Right.
So that is, feeling is a lot. It used to be more, which is really interesting. And I'm really enjoying this process of understanding myself as a channel. The emotions help bring in the information. So if at any point in a reading I feel something, I will acknowledge it, I'll say it, and then it's like the information starts flowing. Parallel to that now, I would say the visions have been growing a lot more. They'll show me things. It's incredible. Something that for me didn't exist at the beginning of my journey now is such a huge part of my readings. without forcing it, without expecting it. It just showed up. So the visions are kind of like an imagination. Imagine it this way, like if you're reading a book and they're talking about a dog and a tree and a house, you're envisioning it. It's like that. And usually I tend to always try to have some kind of wall behind my screen, because like we said, I do this on Zoom, where I can look away from the person that might distract me to be able to see the vision more clearly. That helps me quite a lot, actually. Some people can look down. I'll sometimes look down. But the visions say a lot, because as you acknowledge the vision and you say what you're seeing, they can go into super detailed things, or it can be very general. And as you speak, more information starts flowing through my brain, right?
Right.
So it's like a very intricate, involved process that all of it's connected. It's not like I don't think I could just rely on one at this point. They all help each other, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I remember in my reading, when we connected to my childhood, you said to me, I feel sad. And I went, that's exactly it. I had some trauma in early childhood, and I had a long period of feeling very sad. So when you said that, I went, man, she's reading it right on.
It's insane how the emotions will come into my body. Sometimes I'm like, I can't even believe it, but I will feel it so deep inside of me. It's like it's mine, but I know it's not mine.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when you acknowledge it, it can leave your body, but you have to speak it. I'm saying this for anybody also that might be listening to this, that's a channel, like this could be a method that you use, but sometimes it's gotten to a point where I want to even get emotional. I can feel that sadness so deeply in me, for example, that it helps me understand you and what you've been through, so that I can receive the messages with more clarity, because the more context the channel has, the better, right?
Yes. So how does one prepare for an Akashic Records reading? Do I say I came to you, I'm going to have a records reading with you in about a week? You send me my Zoom link. Is there something? I remembered you sent me an email. Yeah, with things, how to prepare. How do you like your clients to show up for you?
I'm organized. We'll say that.
Yes.
And I think I put in the effort and the energy into helping people feel prepared, because I feel like my first reading, I didn't feel prepared. All I knew is how to write down questions, but I didn't know what to expect. And I get a lot of people that do their first reading. I always ask people, is this your first reading? Maybe they've done a psychic reading, but they're very nervous. So I always try to prepare the energy already from the moment that they reach out to me, that I can email them back, and I do everything via email, where we can chat and they can ask questions, and they can, but what I do is really, I send them the Zoom link. I send them some resources, some links for videos and blog posts that explain what the reading is, how you heal, and what kind of questions you can ask. We have also a podcast episode where I send that as well. And then the form basically explains what to expect. And it's also like a way of giving me permission, because I don't force anybody to do a reading. I will never, ever, ever try to convince somebody to do a reading. If there's any doubt in your mind, wait. I'd say wait.
You have to resonate with it. It has to feel like, I want to do that, or it's not going to, it's like, what are you going to get? It's going to be.
You could get something, but it will feel forced, and the reader will probably have a really hard time getting information.
Yeah.
And that puts everybody in a really uncomfortable place in general. And then you might feel put off to try it again in the future. So I always say, if there's any doubt in your mind, just wait. Or find another person. Maybe the person that you've reached out to doesn't feel like that person can give you what you need. So you have to really listen to yourself. But the preparation process starts the moment you reach out to that person, to that reader. So in my case, the moment you reach out to me, you're already preparing the energy to open up. So there's links, there's things that you can look. Some people might read them. Some people might not. They'll just write down their questions. But the most important thing is the questions, writing down the questions, making sure that you have really connected to yourself and written those down or typed those up, because that already is opening the energy for that information to come in the moment I open your records. And that's why when I do the initial message, when it comes through, a lot of people are like, wow, that already answers one of my questions, because your energy was already open to it. You're already thinking about it. The moment I connect, your soul's already bringing that down.
I remember that when I did schedule my appointment, I was very excited. And I think I had to wait a month or two to take, I think it was to take a morning off from work in order to do it. And I think the part that a person or potential client might be afraid of is, what am I going to get? What kind of information am I going to get? Am I going to get information that is going to scare me? So let's talk about the kind of information that comes through.
It's all unconditional love. And this is why, for me, I feel that my path was so guided to the records, because it was all about self-love, empathy, compassion, non-judgment. And I found that through the records. And that's probably why I was saying earlier that when I went in to get my first reading, I felt so good, so connected, so relieved. There's a sense of peace and clarity and calm.
I felt the same way.
I would say 99% of people feel that way. And it's
you know, in the human realm, on Earth or whatever, 3D, you feel judged all the time.
And you judge yourself too.
Yes, every decision you've ever made. Oh, that was bad. That was good. I'm good. I'm bad. You're constantly saying that to yourself. You're constantly looking at your life with regrets, or that was a good decision, or whatever. And what you understand from the records is that there are no bad decisions. There are just choices.
Does not exist.
Free will.
Yeah. Free will's huge.
Yeah.
Huge. And I think some people want to predict the future or understand exactly what's going to happen. It's more in energetic terms. But going back to your question, you'll hear things through the lens or the energy of non-judgment, of complete and utter unconditional love, and of you being able to understand things. So I always explain to people that the information you receive is as if you were to take like 100 steps back and be able to see things from such a wider lens that you're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And you'll probably have to sit with it, because a lot of people, it's like they're seeing everything's being tied together. The string, like this is tied to this, and this is because of this, and this. It's like all of a sudden everything makes sense, and you understand there's something connecting everything, which helps you know that if you heal this over here, it's literally going to help move the path open for you to walk with more ease, to understand yourself, to love yourself. But there's never any judgment in the records. And if there is, I would say, be careful, because that's not the energy that the records have at all. And that could be the person, it could be the reader's ego getting in the way, or it could be, and this is why I say, as healers, we need to be healing always. That never stops. We have always need to work through our triggers, what we're going through, because we will put our own issues into the readings, the sessions, and the channeling. And that is not what anybody needs. You can't show up for people if you do that. So it is about understanding, compassion, empathy. It's about, it's literally just, it's as if, like, imagine, this is the energy that I feel. It's like, imagine that you're sitting with the most loving being that exists, and you're this little child, and you're asking all these questions, and this being with the most beautiful, open heart energy is explaining things to you, and giving you a sense of peace, and helping you understand why things are happening, and giving you the time and the reassurance that you need. That's the energy. That's how it feels like to me.
You just imputed my next question, which was, what are the ways Akashic Records readings can heal a person? So
yeah, I think that's part of it, that they can give themselves permission to see something from a different perspective. But
yeah,
I always say it feels more informational for most people. They can ask a question. For example, I'll use an example. I think people will understand it better that way. It's, why is my relationship with my mom this, and this way? Why is it so difficult? Why is it showing up? A pattern. There's a pattern there. It keeps repeating, and you're trying to make the relationship better, but your mom keeps triggering you. So let's say, this is all hypothetical, of course, right? Where the person's asking that. The person, it's just coming kind of like the top of my head, because I always feel like people can understand things better when there's like an actual scenario or something hypothetical. So someone would come and ask about their mom and their relationship with their mom, and it's painful because the person wants to feel connected to their mom, or they just keep butting heads or whatever it is. And they can help understand why that's coming up. So some information can come up about their mom and what they've been through and why they're showing up in the way that they are. It could come up with a past life that's explaining why that dynamic's playing out. It can tell you what you need to learn from that so that you can take responsibility, because it's never about the other person. It's always about us.
Right.
It's always about us and what we need to do and why those triggers are showing up. And I think it also gives you permission to feel what you're feeling. So a lot of this is for me in my readings, like people will come and I will always say, look, these readings can be quite emotional. And if they do, give yourself permission to feel what you need to. So sometimes it's that release that creates the healing for you to feel like, wow. A lot of times for me personally, also, I will connect with the inner child energy that comes up a lot. A lot, because I think that's where I'm still working on. So I relate to that a lot. And I think my soul likes working with that. But
I think the people that are drawn to you specifically too are that they're drawn to you for that specific healing because you are working on that issue yourself.
Correct. We'll attract what we're working on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Not projected, because I think that when we start projecting it, that becomes an issue as a healer. But more so that it's something that I resonate with, that I feel is really important, that I want, it's like a message I want to put out to the world. And also why I went down the route of family constellations, which, every time I did a reading, the family would come up. I'm like, why is this a thing? And not to say that I have all these ridiculous issues to work through my family. I have things, but it wasn't something that I thought would resonate with me so much, but it was a modality of healing that I felt was interesting. So it was already coming up, but I felt like I got stuck in some way. But I think the healing aspect of it comes informationally, because the information is so important. And it's like the information can come in, you can integrate it, you can accept it, you can come to like a full circle with it, and then you release it. You have to continue. You can't stay in your head. I say that to people a lot, because I think a lot of people, like, they're taking notes and like, this is this, this, and this. Get out of your head, feel it through your body, and allow yourself to process it through an emotional release, maybe somatic stuff, and then continue on your way, because there's always going to be ups and downs. The thing is, having the insight and the information through a reading could just be helpful for peace of mind and to understand. A lot of times we can be angry. People can come in, I'm angry. Don't understand. I'm frustrated. This is so annoying. And they'll be like, okay, we understand. So this pattern's shown up here, here, and here in your life. It's not just this area that you're talking about. It's literally mirrored in all these things. So what are we going to do about it? And how do you feel? What does this mean to you? So they can answer a lot of those questions. And obviously the reading goes as deep as your questions go, right?
Yeah.
Or how ready you are at that time.
So is there a particular meditation technique that you recommend to connect to the Akashic records for a person, like for an everyday person? Say I have not learned how to read my Akashic records, but are there other ways to connect to your inner knowing that you might recommend?
I think it's more the body. I think any kind of practice, I don't think there's any specific meditation. Like, we've created a couple meditations in our courses that help just connect to the body, the chakras, and open up. Because obviously when we're connecting to the records, we're connecting through our crown chakra, but also we're using our third eye a lot. That's why we get visions. And there's, the brain, it's all kind of like the upper chakras that are being used. But for me, like I say, I feel in my body. So for me, I have to be open in every sense. It can't just be up here. It has to be my heart. It has to be my body. So anything like breath work, I would say more breath work to start, a little bit of breath work, connect to your body. I do that in every session. I do about a minute of connecting to the present moment, letting go, surrendering, this connection to heart and opening our heart up. Because I think that's the main thing when we talk about the records, like I was saying, unconditional love and understanding that, you know, that's what our soul feels and connects to. It doesn't connect to hate, anger, any of those things, right? That's just part of our experience here. So I wouldn't recommend a specific meditation. I would say any kind of meditation that you resonate with. It could be guided or just some music or just in silence, but tune into your body, relaxing your body. I think if we're in this, you know, very stressed out, sympathetic kind of energy in our body, then it's going to be a lot more difficult to connect. And to connect, I mean, I've always learned through an opening verse, right? There's an opening and a closing verse. I don't think everybody needs that. You know, I think you have to feel through what resonates. For me, like I said, I'm a very organized, structured person. I doubted myself for so many years. I have to have a routine and a way to open them. And I repeat that over and over again. And that helps bring kind of a peace of mind and confidence and trust. But could I open the records without using an opening verse, just thinking about the person, putting the intention? 100%. I just don't do that.
Yeah. I think I have, especially since I learned to read my own records, I have connected without knowing. It's like all of a sudden things are coming through with artwork. So, you know, I'm just painting. I've got the TV going on some
That's
movie,
amazing.
and then I'm connecting to, and I'm thinking, oh wow. So, and I think artists, people who are making things, people who are completing the act of creation itself.
It's channeling.
Yeah, it is. It is. Prayer too. When you're sitting down to specifically talk to God, to your angels, to the Virgin Mary, whoever you're speaking to, I think that's another way. And but you have to listen. You know what I mean?
You have to listen.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the big thing.
That's the thing. We don't listen.
No.
We get distracted. And I think for like, I only speak for myself, and I've been talking about listening to, like when I go into a reading, I'll feel it in my body. It's the same thing when we listen to our intuition, right? For me, it comes through my body. It's the same thing. It's something feels off, or something is drawing me to this. And if I really listen and I connect, I know that this is the path I need to take, or this is the decision. That doesn't mean you're going to do it like that, right? It might take you some time, but you're listening to yourself.
Right.
And to connect to the records, I feel like I mean, I've done it through meditation as well. And my records can open on their own if I just think about them. So I think as you get more practiced in opening them more often, that could be the case for a lot of people. You know, I think we're more open spiritually and connected. And if we have created some kind of more mindfulness in our life, whatever that is, through yoga, breath work, or meditation, it becomes maybe easier, you know, to connect.
So how is reading Akashic records for others different from reading your own? Does the information come in the same way?
No, it's so different. I think this is where people get really confused when they get a reading from me, and then they go open their own and they're like, oh my God, why isn't it flowing like when you do it? You know, it's not even that way when I open my own. For myself, I write, I type, or I write. I don't really speak. So that's a huge change there. So I will have my notebook, my journal, or not as often. Sometimes if I'm channeling for like social media or a blog post, I'll have up my computer. So I'll type up. I don't like that as much as writing with pen and paper. And that's how we teach it in level 1. But it comes through just thoughts. I don't get emotions in my body. I don't really get visions. It's more just my mind, and I just have to write really quickly.
Yeah.
It tends to come through really quickly. And for others, it's all those that I mentioned, right? It's the feeling, it's the connection, it's the visions. I don't know why it's this way. And I think it might not be that way for everybody. Some people that, you know, I know personally, that open their own, they get lots of visions. They have to close their eyes and record, because the moment they open their eyes, they're not getting any information. So it is very much a journey of self-discovery, doing level 1 and opening your own records. And some people get really frustrated. Believe me, I did too. But you just have to have patience and try different things and really play around with it. And I think having fun with our spiritual kind of journey, I think we get so serious with it sometimes
Yeah.
that it can block us big time.
So I'm curious, do you see timelines?
Yeah.
So if I asked you a question about, say, a project I wanted to launch, say, my website or something like that,
Hmm.
do you see a timeline or a calendar, or do you see time in linear fashion? Like,
It's interesting. I do now, and I'll explain something. This might help a little bit. I have my left here, my right here. So it started showing up really interestingly, probably like 2 years ago, I want to say, where to my left, they would show me everything that's inner child, past from this incarnation, and also past lives. The present always kind of in the center, very grounded, very connected to the here and the now. And then the right would be the future. And sometimes they'll show it to me like there's like a line traversing from left to right, moving, and they'll show me glimpses of that timeline. I'll see more timelines, especially when people ask about the future, and it's possibilities and probabilities with the records. So sometimes I'll see like the branching out of paths, or one path with different branches, or they'll give me like percentages. So a lot of people are like, is it good to take this job right now? I mean, that's just like, that's not probably the best way to word it, but they're asking about a job and if they should take it, or they have 3 options with a job. So I'll connect energetically to each of them. And I'll say, look, I'm feeling more drawn to this. Give me some more information. Let's connect a little bit deeper. Let's ask more. And then I can try to see if I can connect to the timeline of that person, for example, taking that job. And what that means, and energetically how that would impact them. And sometimes they'll push you in a direction that might not feel the most comfortable. I always say that to people, like, why did they tell me to do this? They're not telling you what to do, but they're saying, why did they give me this indicator?
right.
Because you learned you had to meet this person,
Yes.
or you had to learn this lesson, or you had to go through this, because this literally created a huge change in your life that you wouldn't have done otherwise.
Right.
It gave you the clarity to understand yourself, or a dynamic with a family member, or it's something toxic that was within your work environment that you knew you needed to change, but you weren't.
Right.
But
sometimes it's about
depends.
sometimes it's just about choosing yourself over and over again when you're being
Amen. I feel that really deep. Yeah.
Me too.
Sometimes, yeah, we're connected in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it depends, but I do see the timeline, especially when we talk about family, ancestral, inherited things.
That's
They'll really just, it's like there's this line going back to, for example, the person, their mom, their grandma, their great grandma. Like I'll see the line. It's so interesting. It's very visual. And then I can feel things through that, of course. But yeah.
So I think those are all the questions I had. Would you like to share anything else about Akashic Records?
Yeah, and I also have another message, because it's something I was thinking about yesterday. And I think it's a good place to share. But the records, I would say, I don't know if the Akashic records are for everybody. But if you do feel drawn to them, look it up, look up information, talk to people. I always say to people, my email is open. Email me, ask me any question that you want. I have tons of resources on my YouTube that explain what the records are, what a reading means, how they work, how you open your own records, what can be keeping you from opening your records. But I feel like it's something that we all have the right to connect to ourselves, especially when we talk about opening our own records, level 1. We all have that right. It is our information. We have the capacity and the capability to connect with it. There might be blocks in the way, but we all have that right. It is our information.
Now, say I wanted to open someone else's records that's not in front of me, that is somebody else's records. Could I do that?
You need their permission.
Things-
Yeah, you always need permission.
Yeah.
But we don't need permission with ourselves. It's our records. We're opening our
Right,
own.
right,
But
right.
yeah, there's a lot of respect in the records, of respecting people's information. I always say, as a reader, everything's confidential. Everything's very much about creating a safe space, because that's the only way somebody can fully open up and it literally allows you to be the best reader you can be, because that allows the information to flow. If the person is holding back, scared, nervous, which it's okay at the beginning, but once the records are open, usually that dissipates right away. But you create that space as a healer, be it the records or anything, right? And I think that's such a huge thing that I think some people don't realize, that they have so much control over as a healer, right? That you can create that space for people. And I guess the only thing I want to say really is just like I was saying earlier, that August has been a really, I don't know when this is going to go up. It doesn't matter. It feels like this energy goes into September, if I'm completely honest, from the messages I'm getting. But that August has been a really challenging time for a lot of people. We've been really tested. And to have compassion and empathy towards yourself, because I've seen a lot of people that I feel are so strong, have really been pushing to heal, and they feel a bit defeated right now. Yeah. So my message is to keep going, and to get the support, lean on the people that you need to, because you just have to keep going. It's like a hurdle that we're going through right now. But also the flip side of that is you don't know what somebody else is going through. And I think we're
True.
really quick to judge. We're really quick to start to put people with labels, or to put people in a corner about things. It doesn't matter if you know them or not, right? It's just, we're talking about social media. We're talking about friends, family, and everything.
Yeah.
You just stop for a moment. We just don't know what somebody's going through, and to really connect to our hearts and have compassion and empathy. I'm not saying to let people bully you or run you over, we always have to have that energy, because obviously we need to protect ourselves. But sometimes you need to stop and think a little bit, because I think, seeing the energies I've seen this month, we're all going through something.
Yeah.
We're all going through something. So compassion, empathy, opening our hearts up to those that we can, to ourselves, can create such a different vibration around us, and in our community, our collective. That's our responsibility right now.
And you have this YouTube channel. What's the name of it? Is it under your name?
It's under my name. Yeah, I can send you the links if you like to put it.
Yeah, I'm going to put
yeah.
it in the show notes so people can connect to that and subscribe, and be able to see the wisdom that comes through on that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, and with that beautiful message of being patient with ourselves. That is wonderful.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you so much,
Thank
Valerie.
you, Lorena.
Thanks.